So, members of the media and participants, thank you very much for joining us. We've arranged this press conference to give you the opportunity to speak with His Excellency President Armén Sարգսյանը, who's obviously been championing the Summit of Minds here in Tehran. And with us we have from you, we heard them speak on the first panel, Dóminic de Villepin, who's the former Prime Minister of France and Chairman of Villepin International. Michal Shvitkoy is the Special Representative of the President of the Russian Federation for International Cultural Cooperation. And General Ջեյմս Ջոնսը joins us. He's a retired general from the US and President of the Jones Group International. And Thierry Malleret is the Managing Partner of the Monthly Barometer, which is also helping us get this summit to be the huge success it's already showing itself to be. If you have questions, I will get to you in the order in which the hands go up, so please be patient with me. I try to be democratic about this and go in the order they go up. So I'm not ignoring anyone in particular. I have no agenda here. I guess I'm going to just start with a quick question to each of our news conference panelists to ask a little bit just really what they hope will come out of the Summit of the Minds taking place here in Armenia. And I guess the first person to start with would be His Excellency the President. So you prefer that? All right, afterwards. Perhaps, yeah, then you have a chance to dispute anything, I guess. Perhaps then, Dóminic de Villepin, I could ask you, what do you hope would come out of this summit? What do you expect to come out of this summit?
Well, there are two things I believe are important in today's world, and I believe a summit like this Summit of Minds can contribute to. The first one is a better understanding. We are living in a very complex world where there's a lot of misunderstandings, wrong ideas about people, countries, subjects. And the second is imagination. I pointed out during the debate the fact that I'm always struck through the years to see how little input of imagination we have in our world. Diplomacy used to be a place where people were using their brains and ideas in order to build a better world. When we look at the situation today of the world, where we are in front of us seeing the world order that was created after World War II being completely destroyed, we don't see exactly what is going to be the new world, and what are going to be the new institutions, and what are going to be the new procedures and new ideas that are going to create the world we are going to live in. So I really strongly appeal for more understanding and, of course, more imagination. But all this has to be translated into action. And I believe the best action is the one which is near us, which is always the capacity to change ourselves. And that's why I took the case, the example of France and Germany after World War II. We've been fighting for centuries, and one day we have decided that the best enemies could become the best friends. If you wait, it's never the good time, you have never the good interlocutors, and never the good context. So peace and understanding is a matter of practice. And that's why I really believe in this regard, we should start by ourselves, and we should start by changing ourselves, which is the best way to have better relation with others.
Thank you, sir. Perhaps I could get to Ambassador Shvitkoy next and get a perspective on what might come from this summit, sir.
Как мне представляется, сам факт такой встречи в Армении в высшей степени важен. Не случайно в своем выступлении премьер-министр Армении сказал о том, что в Армении сегодня главная сила – это люди. И коль скоро это так, коль скоро об этом в своем выступлении также говорил и президент Армении, уважаемый господин Армен Сարգсьян, то, конечно же, такого рода встречи в высшей степени необходимы. Сейчас господин Вильпен сказал о том, что нам важно измениться самим. Такого рода форумы умов помогают определить направление изменений. К сожалению, устойчивый мир, в котором мы, может быть, жили 50 лет назад, и не говоря уже о более ранних временах, его не существует больше. В крупных корпорациях, если раньше проводили переобучение персонала раз в 3 года, а потом раз в год, то сегодня переобучение персонала происходит ежедневно по существу. И это потребность времени, потому что слишком много вызовов. Если такого рода площадок не будет, то мы просто не будем успевать за вызовами, мы не успеваем понимать. Мы захлебываемся в информации, и при этом нам недостает понимания. И то, что в сегодняшнем саммите принимают участие такие, ну, с моей точки зрения, уникальные люди, как господин, я его уже назвал руководитель Армении, но такие люди, как господин Вилпен, как господин Джонс, как господин Джойс Чанг и так далее, то понятно, что этот форум все-таки хоть хотя бы подскажет, или не так, он обозначит необходимость изменений. Поверьте мне, это немаловажно в мире, где все хотят не меняться, где очень много людей думает, что можно, не меняясь, изменить этот мир и успеть за его вызовы. Спасибо.
Thank you, Master. General, if I could get you involved, Ջեյմս Ջոնսը here, your perspective so far.
Well, thank you. I hate to talk about myself, but I'm not here as a businessman. I'm here as the chairman of the Atlantic Council of the United States, which is a think tank. I'm here as a former Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, someone who grew up in Europe and has a deep passion for the future of Europe and the future of Eurasia. I think we're here to highlight the importance of Armenia, our host country, and we've heard a lot of analogies about the bridging prospect, which I think is absolutely valid, and the importance of the region. I believe that one of my takeaways is to try to do more to highlight the importance of this region in Washington, and we need to do a lot of work on that, Mr. President. I think we can. And then also to highlight the future goals and aspirations, but that has to be tempered by a realistic picture of what seems to be going on as we hear more and more about the great power competition. And there's some antibodies built into that competition that worry me quite a bit. I think we should practice a quieter brand of diplomacy, not so much through the media and headlines, which prompts immediate positions and divisions that people can't easily walk away from. The recent comment about change is interesting. I found in my lifetime that everybody is for change until you apply the change to yourself. And then it becomes very difficult. Thank you.
General, thank you, sir. Thierry Malleret, get your perspective. Interesting, of course, because of your association with the event as well.
So my key point is that we're not in control of what will happen at the summit, but we expect good, positive outcomes, simply by the fact that there is a great virtue in bringing diverse and influential people together. And I would like to use a metaphor that the President mentioned at the beginning. We are together in this arch for 3 days, and it would be very hard to imagine that when you bring such a great group of leaders together for 3 days, you forge connections, ideas emerge, and some good things will happen. And the Summit of Minds is not a one-off. There is a conversation that will be ongoing during the next few months, and I hope that we'll be back in a year from now, and good, positive things will have happened by then.
Gary, thank you. Mr. President, it falls to you to give us your expectations.
Քանի որ գործընկերների, հեռուստաընկերությունների եւ լրագրողների մեծ մասը հայ են, ես իհարկե կնախընտրեի հայերեն խոսել, բայց քանի որ մեր կոնֆերանսի աշխատանքային լեզուն անգլերեն է, եւ մեր գործընկերները մեկնելու են 1-2 օրից հետո, իսկ ես մնալու եմ ձեզ հետ, հետեւաբար առիթ կունենամ հայերենով կրկին անգամ կրկնել կամ բացատրել այն մտքերը, գաղափարները, որ կապված են այս համաժողովի հետ, մտնում ինձ ներեք եւ թույլ տվեք, որ անգլերեն խոսեմ. I'm just apologizing that I was not speaking Armenian, Alex here, because unfortunately you'll be living in a day or two. I would love you to stay more. And because have the chance of, in Armenian, meeting with the journalists and explaining to them, and basically sort of also lobbying the idea of having in Armenia an important conference like this one, and maybe not one, but 2 or 3. That's very important. So I'll be speaking in English. It's so nice that colleagues also recognize the importance of having this sort of a conference, summit of minds in Armenia. Because first of all, it helps Armenia to understand the world, as I was saying, and the other way around. The world to understand Armenia. And we already had very different sort of suggestions what Armenia should be. A bridge, connecting Europe and Asia, and in fact, advising that maybe Armenia should be the country that could negotiate between Eurasia Economic Union and the European Union. And I would like to say, my good friend, Mr. Prime Minister, if there is a decision like that, probably indeed Armenia could be the one, because it has deep relations with European Union signed, and it's also a big part, small but a big part, at Eurasia Economic Union. So maybe we can be the one that will not be the bridge in a form of transit road, so people will walk on it, or the other way around, we will be the ones that will negotiate the relationship. So Armenia has very good history of negotiations, and most of the historic Armenian businessmen were great negotiators. The ones that I know in my life, they are fantastic negotiators. And the ones that I didn't know personally, including Mr. Gulbenkian and Nubar Pasha, they were great negotiators worldwide. No. So why not? Armenia can be the negotiator between European Union and Eurasia, and if Eurasia Union and European Union will support the idea. So that's one. Number 2, about we in Armenian societies, we really talk about Armenian power. And we all recognize that the Armenian power is definitely not the natural resources or any other resource, it's the manpower. And indeed, 21st century is going to be the century of real manpower. And the signs of that are here. The startups that are there, the biggest multinational companies in the world are no longer the mineral companies or oil companies, they're all IT companies or technological companies. And historically, it's a wonderful opportunity. Why? Because we are at the beginning of the 21st century. I call 21st century not the date when it started 19 years ago. I mean the 4th industrial revolution, or the new revolution which is going to happen. We're at just the beginning of it. And every nation has the same equal chance, be that a big one or a small one. Even in Armenia, a small one, if we can create in a short term a presence of big multinational companies in Armenia, because in order to have artificial intelligence, in order to go into 21st century technology, we have to know what is happening in the world today. So having big French companies, German companies, American companies, Russian companies, and indeed Chinese companies, and I think Huawei will probably be welcomed in Armenia. I'm sorry, General. And I think making Armenia a base of big multinationals, that will create the cultural, scientific, and industrial cultural base to build up upon it the new culture of startup. Because the 21st century, we were speaking, and my colleagues were speaking about restart, new approach, new ways of thinking. You can call it startup. When every individual has the power of contribution, and every individual has the duty of learning and putting in a framework of a country as a core, education as the main thing. Okay? The moment we build a society like that, we will be proudly saying that Summit of Minds in Armenia one day can have a sister conference called Summit of Worldwide Armenian Minds. No, this is not a joke. This is very serious, Because when we think that our main power is human power, we as a nation, worldwide nation, big nation, great nation, so the power of that nation is how we are going to manage to bring that power in not only physically into Armenia, into Armenian cause. So some of my colleagues were speaking, yes, at the previous panel, that after the breakdown of Soviet Union, now we're building again the walls, which is true. We Armenians have to learn from the world and not build walls among us. We should not divide our nations among those who live in Armenia and those who live abroad. That those who live here or those who live in Artsakh. Those that speak Armenian or those who don't speak Armenian for the moment, but they are as Armenian as others. So basically, it is up to us to integrate our nation to use that tremendous, huge power. And again, it's the same three questions. What's happening, what to do, and how to do it, the most important. Maybe we know what to do, but if we are doing it wrongly, we'll get to the wrong result in our Armenian national way. So thank you, Thierry, thank you, colleagues, for helping us to have this summit of minds in Armenia. But again, I hope one day, next year, to have again summit of minds in Armenia, but one day to have summit of worldwide Armenian minds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. A very important message of inclusivity for all Armenians, whether they are in Armenia itself or outside. Members of the media, I'd love to give you the chance now, of course, to speak with this distinguished panel, including your president. Please do put up your hands and I will get in the order in which I see them. So we have the two ladies there. This lady first, then there, then the gentleman, and then over to you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. President.
Please tell us where you're from as well, so
Okay.
your affiliation.
Thank you, everyone. I have a question for General Jones.
Where you're from?
I'm Ellen Hochikian from 1 AM news agency. General Jones, I have a question that regards to the security issues and to NATO. How do you see the evolution of Armenia's participation in NATO's PFP program? How else Armenia can contribute without membership aspirations? Also, is there any way that NATO could contribute to the security of non-member states? Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. First of all, I think we should congratulate Armenia for its tremendous contribution to the partnership program in NATO. The President and I were talking about this yesterday, and it's something that's very, very much appreciated. You know, NATO is fortunate, I think, to have a membership action plan and a partnership plan. And I think the more people are interested in the partnership plan, the better, because interoperability is important. It's another form by which people can come together. And so that's extremely important. I think, I can't speak for NATO anymore, but I think that, you know, NATO has been involved in the region. We've had Georgia as well has sent troops, very, very well-trained troops to the war zones. And so there's a lot of appreciation for Armenia's contribution and Georgia's contribution and alike. So I think those links can be developed. The basis is already formed, and I would strongly encourage that to continue to develop those ties.
General, thank you, sir. So this lady was next.
Շնորհակալություն Քրիստինե Ալագուլյան, Շանթերուստանկերություն, իմ հարցերը հասցեագրված են Թիերի Մալըրեին։ Նշանակալի իրադարձություն է, որ Monthly Barometer-ը որոշել է Հայաստանում անցկացնել Summit of Minds-ը, հետաքրքիր է, արդյոք Հայաստանը կդառնա կարևոր հարթակ Summit of Minds-ի համար եւ արդյոք հնարավոր են այլ իրադարձություններ ու միջոցառումներ բացի այս գագաթնաժողովից։
Well, I cannot speak for others, of course, but the President already alluded to the fact that there will be significant conferences organized in Armenia. What I can say is that organizing something in Armenia is a great pleasure because it's very highly correlated with the quality of your human capital. It's pleasant, people are nice, work effectively and fast. So we do have the conviction that if we are able to generate a positive outcome, which I'm sure we will, we'd be delighted to come back, of course. It would be a pleasure and a privilege. And it's important for us. We are a tiny organization based in Chamonix with very few staff members. And we feel a bit like Armenia. We are a small country, but with a very global footprint. So we are a bit like that. We like to punch above our weight. Thank you.
Thierry, thank you. And of course, Ջեյմս Ջոնսը from UNCTAD earlier compared Armenia to Switzerland, saying also a landlocked country, no natural resources, but plays a huge role in diplomacy and so on. So that was an interesting comparison. The gentleman is there next one, say.
Thank you. My name is David Sargsyan. I'm from the Armenia TV company. Yes. And my question is for Dóminic de Villepin. Armenia is an eastern partner for the European Union. It is a country in South Caucasus for Russia. And we are a country on the way to the west for China. So we are a country here, but as a nation we are everywhere. So what do you think, is it possible for Armenia to become a sort of, the hub for dialogue between all these positions, all these geopolitical different agendas which are usually contradict each other? So is it possible for Armenia to become a country to combine all of this and to do something more that it can do now? Thank you.
Thank you. As President Sargsyan was mentioning, Armenia has a very strong geographic position, as well as a very strong historic heritage. And that allows Armenia to play a role as a bridge between the different entities that you have mentioned. We should not underestimate the fact that both of the three entities that you've been talking about, which is the European Union, Russia, and Russia and neighboring countries, and China, are all three of them undergoing huge changes. And one of the difficulties of today is to have the different players understanding what is going on in those different areas. I'm not sure that the EU has a good understanding of what is going on in Russia and the neighboring countries of Russia. The same with China. So I see, because I'm traveling quite a lot in those places, I see more and more intellectual barriers. I see more and more fear. I see more and more distrust in between these partners. That's why I'm advocating the idea of a G4. Because to start with, these people, they get to know each other better. And they have a huge responsibility in front of their people in getting more connected. And I believe Armenia, who is in the position of having good relations with all these three parties, can play of course, a role as a bridge in between those different entities. I think that one of the very interesting direction for Armenia to develop its own assets goes with the world culture. And that's why the Summit of Minds, it seems to me, is really symbolic of the challenges of Armenia. And there are two big challenges and two big assets that Armenia could develop in the coming years that could reinforce this role of a bridge. The first one is the culture of mind, which is education, innovation. I believe in the coming years, the President was talking about multinational having investment, growing investment here. I think in the coming years, the role of innovation and education will give a strong position to Armenia. And that's a first element. The second is the importance of the culture of sharing in our world. And that has to do with tourism. You have a beautiful country, you have the possibility to expand if you do it right, because I must say, tourism is not an easy challenge. Many countries in the last decades have missed the opportunity to be good country for tourism. I'm the chairman of the Alliance of Mountain in China, which is a Chinese initiative, and I've seen how careful they are in trying to respect the environment, the local cultures, and the local economies when they make projects about receiving more tourists. Tourism is like oil. It can be the best or the worst of things. It can kill everything around you. And never forget that tourism has been the main problem of Cuba. I was raised in Venezuela, and I've seen at the end of the 50s how Cuba turned out to be really a hell place because of tourism. So respect nature, respect people, choose projects that are sustainable and at the level of people. This is going to be very difficult in the coming years because, of course, you will have a lot of people coming with a lot of money and huge projects that will not be good for Armenia at the end. So I believe if you follow the path of culture in a respectful and sustainable way, both for minds, education and innovation, and for sharing tourism, I think that Armenia will reinforce its capacity to be a bridge between Europe, Russia, Asia, China, and that will give a very strong position for Yerevan and Armenia.
Thank you very much, sir. You just switch your microphone off there, sir.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. The lady there is next.
Thank you.
1 minute, sorry.
Պարոն նախագահ, իմ հարցը ձեզ է ուղղված։ Հայկական երկրորդ հեռուստալիք, ես Հրացին Սաֆարյանն եմ։ Պարոն նախագահ, այսօր աշխարհում եւ մեր տարածաշրջանում նույնպես այնպիսի սոցիալ մշակութային փոփոխություններ են տեղի ունենում, որոնք կարծես յուրատեսակ ճգնաժամի մեջ են դնում ավանդական քաղաքական միավորներին եւ քաղաքական գործիչներին։ Հետաքրքիր է իմանալ ձեր կարծիքը, ինչպես պետք է նրանք արձագանքեն այս իրողություններին եւ որոնք են այս փոփոխություններից բխող հիմնական մարտահրավերները եւ նաեւ հնարավորությունները։ Շնորհակալ եմ։
Այսինքն ինչպես համաշխարհային ղեկավարները
Այսինքն այդ փոփոխությունները բերում են նրան, որ ավանդական քաղաքական ուժերը կարծես ճգնաժամի մեջ են հայտնվում։
Well, this is a question about the traditional and classical, the way I interpret that myself, politics, with the new era of 21st century. Yes, indeed, that the 21st century is going to be completely different from the 20th, not only because, as you were saying, General, that I think it will not be first the force to be used, but probably the first, the second, the third will be negotiations, diplomacy, many other features, then the third force should be the force, I mean military force, and we hope that's the logic that it works. But the world will be completely different as well. I think we're going to live in a completely different world where many fundamental ideas and principles will be changing. And it's happening now today. If you look in Europe, you can interpret that as if it's whatever is happening in Europe as an accidental process, or you can look and try to find the fundamental problems or reasons for what is happening. Fundamental ideas of freedom and democracy and many other ideas will be challenged as well. And also, not only what, but also how the democracy and freedom will be exercised. I think we are living in a time where democracy is daily democracy. I think people are voting not only 5 years once, but they are voting every day through their Facebooks, through their Twitters, through their approach. And whoever will not change himself will start living in the 20th century as a politician will be suffering. This is my conclusion that I see. And the world will be, it's a huge question, I think. Somehow I have reflected to that question in putting some ideas on a paper, but in a short interview, especially today, the only conclusion that I can make, this world, or tell to you that this what is going to be different, and we see that everywhere. If you take, for example, Britain, what happening is Britain is discourse between the establishment and the people. People don't trust their government, they don't trust the parliament, they don't trust the political parties, and I think there are only one or two institutions that they trust. One is the monarchy, because that represents the idea of statehood and the nation, and the other one probably is the courts, independent courts, and a couple of other ones. So the challenge is going to be there for everyone, for United States, for Europe, for Russia, for Armenia. So we have to be ready not only to engage and embrace the changes in technology, because that's the future, but we have to embrace also the changes that are coming with the new age, and including the technological changes that will have huge impact on social behavior and the way politics is exercised. That's a short answer for a great question.
General, you wanted to add something?
Thank you. You know, one of the things that I think is important to have in our dialogue is the question of human rights. And I think that we're living in a world where you're seeing the rise of autocracies. The difference between the 20th and the 21st century is these are smart autocracies. They know how to use social media. They know how to use economies. They know how to speak in very seductive ways. But I would be extremely careful about the choices that you make simply because more is better. Be very careful about the choices that you make, and understand that when you commit to a certain type of relationship, whether it's economic or political, military, whatever you want it to be, that you're aligned philosophically with the fundamental question of the rights of human beings. And because if you don't, you're liable to, your culture, your way of doing things is liable to be subsumed by a very seductive but very erroneous penetration of the way you live and the way you want your people to live.
Thank you, General. So I'm told basically we're out of time. What I'm going to do is, because those people had their hands up, I'll ask you to just briefly ask your questions. They can be addressed later in the forum. Very briefly, please. And then we come to you.
Thank you. Elena Krasilova, University of Kent. One of the speakers mentioned that we live in a more difficult world today. And indeed, as the EU Global Security Strategy stated, that the world is becoming 3C, more connected, more complex, and more contested. So there are no more poles anymore. There are no double poles or multiple poles. We live in the world of emergent orders underpinned by values, traditions, cultures, and so on. So how to ensure cooperation in this new and brave world, and have governing mechanisms that would give equal voice to outgoing hegemons, but also smaller states, let's say like Armenia, for example. So the question to all the panelists. Thank you.
If I could have your question as well, please.
I'm Lucine Makarchyan from MediaMax. Господин Швидкоев, вот культура является отражением эпохи, и сегодня мир стоит на пороге технологической революции. Вот мне интересно, какие генеральные тренды существуют в современном искусстве, которые вот характеризуют эпоху, как вы думаете?
Ironically, both similar questions, but maybe I could get one answer then. Investor.
Очень коротко.
Cover both, maybe.
Искусство, мне кажется, что в мире больших технологий сегодняшних, и особенно в мире такой большой виртуальности, в которой мы живем, как ни странно, будет цениться то, что имеет гуманистически ощутимый смысл. То есть общение живого с живым станет самой большой драгоценностью. Вот мы все говорим о том, что надо учиться онлайн, надо учиться, лечиться надо онлайн, там, и все делать онлайн. Но я недавно была очень серьезная статья в Нью-Йорк Таймс о том, что весь онлайн это для бедных, а богатые будут ходить к хорошим врачам, они будут ходить к нормальные, богатые частные школы, где будут учить детей хорошие учителя и так далее. Поэтому, когда мы говорим о современном искусстве, надо понимать, что вот это технологическое искусство, ну, тоже она тоже для популярных и для очень широких слоев населения. И в этом смысле сегодня художнику любому будет работать очень сложно, потому что, повторю еще раз, можно все превратить в индустрию. Сегодня это делается очень легко. Мы печатаем 5G, 8G, печень, селезенку и так далее, но если речь пойдет о каком-то супер-топ руководителе, он не захочет вставлять себе на принтере напечатанную печень или почку, он захочет настоящую. Вот это относится к искусству тоже. Может быть, я ответил так немножко не прямо, но уверен, что это именно так.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Listen, I'm sorry we're out of time. I know a lot of you had your hands up, but we overran nearly 15 minutes, though we did start late. I thank you, though, for taking part, and I hope that was useful. Of course, many of the panelists are around, so you can always approach them and touch base for questions with them as well. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for joining us. Thank you.
Они нам могут обеспечивать открытость достаточно